In the town of Chinneville, there was once an old man named James, who had spent years as the town's cemetery guard. Every night, he walked slowly through the rows of gravestones, ensuring everything was safe and quiet. James was a kind-hearted person with a gentle smile. He loved to tell stories to the children who visited the cemetery during the day. But more than anything, he loved to go fishing on every Saturday. He would grab his old fishing rod and head to the lake in hopes of catching a big fish. On one stormy evening of February 20th, 2012, though, as James was finishing his nightly rounds, he noticed something unusual. A flickering light shining from behind the large oak tree near the center of the cemetery. Curious, he walked over to investigate. The trees creaked, making the night feel eerie. As he got closer, he realized the light was coming from an old lantern set on the ground. Suddenly, he heard footsteps behind him. Startled, James turned to look. He squinted his eyes, but could see no one in the dark. His heart raced. "Who's there?" He shouted, his voice steady despite the fear creeping into his chest. There was no answer, only the rustling of leaves. Mu- Must be the wind, he reassured himself. Shaking off the uneasiness, he turned back to the lantern. As he picked it up, he saw a small piece of paper underneath. It was a note, and it read, "The truth lies with the dead." Confused, James pocketed the note, thinking it might be a prank from some local kids. Later that night, he returned to his tiny cabin next to the cemetery. He sat at his old kitchen table, the lantern casting a warm glow. With curiosity, he opened the note again. What truth, as he sipped his tea. He thought of the stories he could tell to the children during the day. If he can solve this mystery and turn it into a story. With that thought in mind, before leaving for the day around midnight, James went back to the cemetery. He felt a chill in the air, a hint that something was wrong. He carried the lantern with him. The light flickering softly, he moved towards the oak tree again, hoping to find more clues. As he reached close to the tree, he noticed a shadow moving quickly behind a nearby gravestone. "Hello, is someone there?" James called out, trying to sound brave, but the shadow vanished behind the gravestones. Fear gripped him, yet his curiosity pushed him forward. He decided to inspect the area. As he searched among the gravestones, suddenly he heard a rustling in the bushes. This time he was ready. "Show yourself," he shouted. A young man stepped out, looking a bit frightened. "I didn't mean to scare you. I'm just looking for something," he stammered. James relaxed slightly. "What are you looking for?" The young man hesitated. "A family heirloom. It belonged to my father. I think it's buried here." Buried? James felt a shiver run down his spine. "In a grave?" "Yes, my dad's grave," the young man replied, looking down sadly. Out of compassion, James asked, "Would you like some help?" "Yes, please. I need to find it." Together, they began to search around the grave, digging through the soft earth with a shovel, the lantern light shining on the gravestone, giving the entire scene a haunting glow. As they dug deeper, suddenly they uncovered a small box. The young man gasped and quickly opened it, revealing a glittering jewelry and a photo of his father inside. "I found it," he exclaimed, smilingly. James then asked the young man to leave the cemetery, so that he could cover up the ditch and leave for the day himself. After the young man left, James started covering up the ditch. Just then he heard a voice, low and menacing.
You shouldn't have come here, old man.
James turned to look in the direction of the voice. He then saw a tall and slender man emerge from behind the oak tree where he found the note. The man was holding a hunter's knife that was glinting in the moonlight. Before James could react, the man lunged towards James to attack. In his defense, James deflected the knife and tried hitting the person back with the shovel in his hands. But the figure moved very swiftly, dodging the attack and slashing on James' hand, causing James to let go of the shovel and falter back in pain. Understanding the strength difference, James tried escaping the cemetery and ran towards his cabin to shut himself in order to try calling the police. But when James was about to reach the cabin, the killer jumped and attacked on James' feet, slicing off his tendon, which made James to fall in pain. Struggling with pain, James tried crawling ahead to his cabin, but suddenly he felt another stab in his back. Writhing in pain, James turned to look at the man. To his horror, the man was enjoying the whole chase. The killer then stabbed James in the heart, killing him on the cemetery ground. The next morning, a woman visiting the cemetery found James lying dead on the cemetery floor. She informed the police about it. The police arrived at the cemetery and began investigating. The detectives pieced together the fragments of the tragic event and also found a note in James' pocket with the words "Truth lies with the dead" written on it, and on the back of the note a name, Sealers, was written in blood. The next day James was laid to rest in the presence of townspeople. The townspeople mourned the loss of the kind old man. The tragedy became stories of warning, reminding all to be aware of the darkness that sometimes lurked too close in sleepy towns.